The Academy's emergency protocols activated because a prey species was teaching predator combat theory, and he was asleep. Instructor Vex Thule burst through the classroom door, all four arms reaching for his communicator as security alerts screamed through his neural implant. Prey species unconscious. 5 armed predators present. Immediate intervention required. His training mandated he treat this as a hostage situation at minimum, potential fatality at worst. What he found made his predatory instincts short-circuit entirely. Michael Anderson, the human graduate teaching assistant, was slumped over the lecture podium, head resting on folded arms, breathing with a deep, steady rhythm of genuine sleep. The 5 Vrexian cubs, each capable of tearing through reinforced steel with their juvenile claws, sat in perfect formation at their desks, styluses moving frantically across their data pads. Not hunting, not circling, taking notes. What? Vex Thule started. Shh. 5 predatory heads snapped toward him in unison, eyes flashing with warning. Zillax, the pack leader, bared his teeth, not in threat display, but in the protective grimace Vex Thule had only seen parents use around sleeping offspring. The human is resting, Zillax whispered with an intensity that made it clear this was non-negotiable. He provided 17 tactical frameworks in the last 40 minutes. We're still processing the implications of the third wave flanking theory. Vex Thule's secondary heart stuttered. He's been asleep for 40 minutes? Among 5 of you? And you're... He gestured at the data pads, his mind refusing to process what his eyes clearly showed. Learning, R. Hill supplied quietly, not looking up from her notes. More than we have in 4 weeks of standard instruction. The human's methodology is unprecedented. The door burst open again. Dean Kael'thas entered with 3 security officers, weapons drawn, and immediately froze at the threshold. His compound eyes swept the room 3 times as if his visual cortex was malfunctioning. Instructor Vex Thule, Kael'thas said slowly, his translator struggling with his shock. Why are 5 juvenile apex predators conducting a study session around an unconscious prey species? Sir, we're not... Jotaro began, then caught himself. We're documenting his teaching method. It's remarkably effective. His teaching method, one of the security officers repeated, mandibles clicking in confusion. He's unconscious. He's resting, Ginix corrected with a low growl that made the security team step back involuntarily. There's a difference, and he's still providing guidance. As if on cue, Michael mumbled something unintelligible, shifted slightly, and muttered, "Pack coordination requires trust infrastructure. Can't flank what you're protecting." All 5 cubs' styluses started moving again, capturing every word. By the ancestors, Vex Thule breathed. They're actually learning from his sleep talking. Kael'thas moved closer, careful not to make sudden movements that might disturb either the human or the predators who'd apparently decided to guard him. He glanced at R. Hill's datapad, and his breathing apparatus seized. These are advanced tactical theories. Multi-species pack coordination frameworks. These concepts aren't introduced until 3rd-year courses. He looked at Vex Thule. How long has this been happening? I don't know, sir. The security alert triggered when you tried to enter, Zillax interrupted, still watching Michael with unwavering focus. We activated the emergency protocols ourselves. We needed to ensure no one would disturb his rest until we'd finished transcribing his insights. You. Kael'thas's voice dropped to barely audible. You activated the emergency protocols to protect a human, a prey species, from us. Durax finally looked up from his notes, head tilting in genuine confusion. Of course. He trusted us enough to rest in our presence. That trust creates responsibility. The human taught us that in week 2, pack bonds supersede individual advantage when survival optimization requires collective action. Vex Thule felt every established principle of predator psychology crumbling around him. That's not how predator instincts work. It is now, Hill said simply, returning to her notes as Michael mumbled something about defensive perimeters and emotional intelligence. Kyle Thoss accessed the classroom's recording archives, while 3 more faculty members crowded into the doorway, drawn by the emergency alerts. What he found made him question his entire career in xenopedagogy. The human arrived on time, he narrated, watching the playback on his datapad. Began lecture on advanced pack coordination. Approximately 12 minutes in, he apologized for being tired, said he'd been up late grading their essays. He paused, rewinding. Then he just put his head down. And they didn't attack. Professor Sinara whispered from the doorway, her feathers ruffling in distress. 5 different predator species. 5 competing predator species. They should have seen weakness, and we saw responsibility. Zilax interrupted, still not looking away from Michael. The human trusted us with his vulnerability. Only an idiot betrays that kind of trust. Vex Thule pulled up the Cubs' note files, comparing them against standard curriculum benchmarks. His hands began shaking. Dean, these notes. They've documented 17 distinct tactical frameworks. The standard curriculum covers 12 in an entire semester. Impossible, Sinara said. Those are 5 of our most challenging students. They barely cooperate during standard instruction. Because standard instruction treats us like we're supposed to compete, Jotaro said, his claws tapping rhythmically on his datapad. The human explained in week 1 that effective predator tactics require pack thinking, not individual dominance. We thought he was being naive. Then he demonstrated. Demonstrated how? Kalthas demanded. He fell asleep during our first quiz. Arhyle explained, as if this were perfectly logical. We could have cheated, copied answers, claimed his negligence. Instead, Genix noticed the human's coffee had spilled. Dirax got paper towels. I moved his grade pad so it wouldn't get wet. By the time we'd taken care of him, we realized we'd worked together more effectively than during any training exercise. Michael mumbled again. Resource guarding indicates trust deficiency. Share the kill. Strengthen the pack. Recording that, Dirax said quietly, his stylus moving. That's the foundational principle for the 7th framework. Collaborative resource management in high-stress scenarios. Vex Thule pulled up Academy psychiatric records, his secondary heart now pounding in alarm. Dean, I need to show you something. He projected the data. Incident reports, behavioral assessments, intervention logs. These 5 cubs have been flagged for excessive aggression, territorial disputes, and failure to integrate with mixed species units. Standard predator psychology suggests they're incompatible for pack training. Suggested, Zilax corrected. Past tense. We've run 15 joint training simulations in the past 3 weeks. Perfect cooperation scores in all 15. That's impossible, Sinara said. The psychological barriers between your species are... We're based on competition models, Genix said, finally looking up. His eyes held something Vex Thule had never seen in a juvenile predator. Certainty beyond instinct. The human proved those models wrong. We're not competing for dominance in his class. We're cooperating to protect something valuable. The human? Kalthas asked. The trust, Arhill corrected. The human just happens to be what made us realize we could build it. Another faculty member pushed through. Professor Zilar, head of Interspecies psychology. She pulled up her own datapad, face darkening. I've been reviewing the classroom surveillance from the past month. Every time this human shows fatigue, the cub's protective behaviors intensify. Last week, when he dozed off for 3 minutes, they formed a defensive perimeter around the podium. When another instructor tried to enter, we politely informed Professor Talana that the human needed 14 more minutes of rest to complete his REM cycle. Zilak said. We'd been studying human sleep requirements. Seemed relevant. You're studying human biology, Vexthul said slowly, to better protect a member of a prey species. He protects us too, Jitaro said simply. Last week, when Zilak struggled with the third essay, the human stayed 4 hours past class helping him. Missed his own sleep. That's pack behavior. We're just returning it. Kael'thas backed away from the cubs, from the sleeping human, from everything his education told him was impossible. This violates every established principle of predator-prey dynamics. The psychological literature is unanimous. Predators cannot bond protectively with prey species. It contradicts fundamental instinct. Then your literature, Dirac said, not looking up from his notes as Michael mumbled something about trust-based hierarchy systems, is wrong. Michael's eyes fluttered open. He blinked twice at the crowd of faculty members, then at the 5 predators sitting in unnaturally perfect attention around him, and his face went crimson. Oh, crap. He sat up quickly, nearly knocking over his coffee thermos. How long was I out? I am so sorry. I was up until 3 a.m. finishing your essay evaluations, and I just... He ran a hand through his hair, looking mortified. This is completely unprofessional. I'm really sorry, guys. All 5 cubs immediately stood, moving in synchronized precision that made Zuilar gasp. They approached the podium not as predators approaching prey, but as students approaching a respected teacher, with their datapads extended. We documented everything, Zilak said, something almost shy in his tone. Could you verify we understood the frameworks correctly? Michael took R. Hill's pad first, scrolling through pages of notes. His embarrassment shifted to confusion, then to something like wonder. Wait, you guys, this is really good. The flanking theory applications, the pack coordination matrices. He looked up at them. This is better than my lecture notes. How did you... You explained it while resting, Jitaro said. We wanted to make sure we captured it accurately. For when you woke up, I was sleep-talking. Michael's face somehow got redder. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly weird. It was incredibly effective, Dirac said firmly. We learned more in 40 minutes than the previous month of standard instruction. Michael looked at the assembled faculty members, clearly registering their presence for the first time. Hi. I'm guessing this isn't a normal classroom observation? Kael'thas stepped forward, his compound eyes fixed on Michael with unnerving intensity. Mr. Anderson, I need you to explain something. These cubs have demonstrated unprecedented cooperative behavior, advanced tactical understanding, and protective bonding toward you, a prey species. How? Michael blinked. How? I just taught them the way I'd want to be taught. He shrugged, clearly not seeing the issue. First week, I explained that real predator effectiveness isn't about individual dominance. It's about pack trust. Figured they'd learn better if they felt responsible for something besides just getting good grades. Responsible for what? Vexithul demanded. For each other, for the learning environment, 4. Michael gestured vaguely at himself. I don't know. Making sure their sleep-deprived TA doesn't faceplant into the podium, apparently. He smiled at the Cubs. Thanks for that, by the way. You intentionally made yourself vulnerable, Sinara said, her voice barely above a whisper. To trigger protective instincts in predators. What? No, Michael paused, then laughed. Oh, I guess I kinda did. Not on purpose today, obviously. But yeah, first week I mentioned being tired. Asked if they could help me reorganize the classroom since I was struggling with the furniture. They jumped right in, worked together better than they did during any combat drill. He looked at the Cubs fondly. Figured out pretty quick that these guys don't need more competition. They need reasons to cooperate. That's not how predator psychology works, Zilar said, but her voice held no conviction. Apparently it is, though, Michael said, gesturing at the Cubs. Look, I don't know the fancy xenopsych theories. I just know that back home, we figured out thousands of years ago that people, humans I mean, learn better when they're protecting something they care about than when they're competing against each other. Thought it might work for predators, too. Demonstrate, Kael'thas said abruptly. Cubs, demonstrate the tactical frameworks you learned today. The 5 predators moved to the training space at the classroom's rear. What followed made every faculty member's breathing change. Perfect coordination, flawless communication, advanced flanking patterns that third-year students struggled with. The Cubs moved like they'd trained together for years, anticipating each other's actions, covering vulnerabilities, operating as a single unified force. Now, Kael'thas said, his voice tight, demonstrate those same tactics against a human target. The Cubs stopped moving, turned to look at Kael'thas. Zilax tilted his head in what looked like genuine confusion. Why would we do that? It's a training scenario. Humans are pack, Arhil said, as if explaining something obvious to a child. You don't use predator tactics against your own pack. That's the entire point of what we learned. Vexthul sat down heavily in a student chair. 70 years, he said to no one in particular. 70 years of teaching predator combat theory. And a sleep-deprived human graduate student just proved that everything we built our methodology on is wrong. Michael looked genuinely distressed. I didn't mean to cause problems. Should I not fall asleep anymore? No, Kael'thas said, something between laughter and despair in his voice. You should probably keep doing exactly what you're doing, because apparently you've accidentally solved a training problem we've had for 2 centuries. Oh, cool. Michael yawned. Sorry, still tired. Immediately, all 5 Cubs moved closer. Their protective formation instinctive now. Ginix grabbed Michael's forgotten coffee thermos and handed it to him. Dirax adjusted the podium height so Michael could lean on it more comfortably. Zilax looked at the faculty members with something defiant in his eyes. Class isn't over. The human still has 20 minutes of instruction scheduled. You're welcome to observe. Quietly. The faculty retreated to the observation room while Michael finished his lecture. Fully awake this time, though the Cubs kept glancing at him as if monitoring for signs of fatigue. Kael'thas pulled up comprehensive data files, his hands moving faster than Vexthul had ever seen. Look at this, the dean said, projecting test scores across the holographic display. These 5 Cubs. Before Michael Anderson's assignment, bottom quartile in cooperation metrics, flagged for remedial pack dynamics, average tactical theory scores of 43%. He switched screens. Current scores, 97% tactical theory, perfect marks in cooperative exercises. And this, he highlighted a particular metric that made Zilar's breath catch. Cross-species trust index increased by 400% in 1 month. That's impossible, Sinara said automatically, then stopped herself. I need to stop saying that. The human didn't teach them tactics, Zilar said slowly, her analytical mind finally catching up to what her eyes had witnessed. He taught them guardianship. The tactics were just byproduct. They learned because they were protecting something. Vexthul watched through the observation window as Michael drew diagrams on the hollow board, the cubs asking questions with genuine engagement he'd never seen from them before. It's not just protection instinct. It's deeper than that. He made them feel responsible. For him, for each other, for the learning itself. Human parenting psychology, Zilar said suddenly, pulling up her own data. I studied it briefly. Humans have extended juvenile periods where offspring are completely vulnerable for years. Human adults evolved powerful protective responses not just to their own young, but to any vulnerable dependent. It's why humans can bond with non-human animals, even predator species from their own world. She looked up. He didn't trigger predator instincts. He triggered parenting instincts. By being authentically vulnerable, Kailthas finished. Not through manipulation or training scenarios, through genuine need. He was actually tired, actually needed help. And they responded to real vulnerability in ways they never respond to simulated training. In the classroom, Michael yawned again, catching himself. Sorry guys, still running on 4 hours of sleep. Arhill immediately stood. We can conclude early. You should rest. Nah, we've got... Michael checked the schedule. 12 minutes. I can make it 12 minutes. Besides, you guys had questions about the midterm material. The protective formation tightened imperceptibly. Zilax moved his chair 3 inches closer to the podium. They formed a pack, Vexthul breathed, with a human as the... What? The vulnerable member, the protected core? The valued member, Zilar corrected. Look at their body language. They're not treating him as weak. They're treating him as essential. Something worth protecting because of his value to the pack structure, not despite his vulnerability. Sinara pulled up academy records going back decades. Our entire training methodology is based on competitive stress models. Push predators to compete, establish dominance hierarchies, simulate combat scenarios until cooperation emerges from mutual respect through conflict. She laughed bitterly. We've been trying to force cooperation through aggression, and a human accidentally discovered you can just ask them to take care of something. Not just something, Kailthas said, watching Michael explain a complex tactical concept while obviously fighting exhaustion, while 5 apex predators hung on his every word. Someone who trusts them enough to be vulnerable. That's the variable we never considered. The lecture ended. Michael gathered his materials, moving slowly. The cubs didn't rush him, didn't leave. Jitaro picked up the data pads Michael had been juggling. Ginix grabbed his coffee thermos. Durax held the door. Same time Thursday? Michael asked. We'll be here early, Zalax said. To set up. You should rest more before then. Yeah, I'll try. Michael smiled. Thanks for being patient with me today, guys, and for the notes. Those were really impressive. After he left, the cubs remained for a moment. Rahil looked directly at the observation window, somehow knowing the faculty was watching. We know you're analyzing this, she said, trying to understand it. Here's what you need to know. The human trusted us with something real, his actual well-being. Not a simulation, not a test. Real trust creates real responsibility. Real responsibility creates real pack bonds. That's not complicated. Kyle Thas turned to his assembled faculty. We need to completely restructure our training protocols. Not to replicate what happened here, you can't fake genuine vulnerability. But to understand that we've been approaching predator education backwards for 200 years. So what do? Vex Thule asked. We start by assigning human teaching assistants to every predator training program in the academy, Kael'thas said. And we hope they're all as accidentally brilliant as Michael Anderson. Should we tell him, Sinara asked, that he's revolutionized predator psychology? Through the window, they could see Michael in the hallway, leaning against the wall, clearly debating whether he could make it back to his quarters before his next nap. Maybe after he gets some sleep, Zilar said. 3 weeks later, the Academy Council convened to review what they were now calling the Anderson Protocol. Michael sat in the back of the conference room, trying desperately to stay awake through the presentation about his own teaching methods. 17 other academies have requested human teaching assistants, Kael'thas reported to the assembled administrators. Initial results confirm our findings. Predator species demonstrate 400% improvement in cooperative learning when paired with humans who display authentic vulnerability and trust. We're calling it Guardian Protocol Training, Zilar added, though we've mandated that human staff remain conscious during instruction. Mr. Anderson's methodology, while effective, isn't recommended as standard practice. Wait, so I'm not getting paid to nap? Michael muttered to Vex Thule beside him. You're getting paid to be yourself, Vex Thule said, which apparently means revolutionizing 2 centuries of predator education theory. On screen, footage played of the Cubs' latest tactical simulation. Perfect execution, flawless coordination, 5 different predator species moving as one unified force. The simulation ended with their unit protecting a designated vulnerable asset against overwhelming opposition, something they'd failed consistently before Michael's class. The key insight, Kael'thas continued, is that predator instincts don't need to be overcome or suppressed. They need to be redirected. Competition becomes cooperation when there's something worth protecting together. Aggression becomes guardianship when trust is... Michael's head drooped forward, caught himself, drooped again. In the hallway outside, where the Cubs were waiting for class, 5 pairs of ears perked up simultaneously. The human's sleep-deprived again, Zilax whispered. Conference probably ran through his rest period, Arhill said, concerned. Should we... Jotaro started. Quiet, Ginix interrupted. Learning in progress. We maintain silence until he wakes. Inside the conference room, Michael's eyes finally closed completely. His breathing evened out. Kael'thas noticed, stopped mid-sentence, and smiled. And here, he said quietly to the council, we observe the phenomenon in real time. The human has fallen asleep in the presence of predatory faculty, and instinctively, we've all... He gestured around the room where everyone had unconsciously lowered their voices, moved more carefully. Adjusted our behavior to protect his rest. By the ancestors, one council member whispered. He's done it to us too. 15 minutes later, Michael woke to find the conference concluded, the room empty except for his 5 Cubs standing at respectful distance. Zilax held out a container of fresh coffee. Earth coffee, somehow acquired from the human quarter commissary. You missed the conclusion of the meeting, Arhill said. We took notes. Michael accepted the coffee gratefully. You guys are the best. What did I miss? The Galactic Council is receiving a report titled Predatory Learning Through Protective Bonding, a Human-Initiated Paradigm Shift. Drax reported. You're being credited with fundamentally changing how predator species are trained across 12 sectors. Michael blinked. I fell asleep in class one time. 47 times, actually, Jotaro corrected. We've been counting. Each time we learned something new. Huh. Michael sipped his coffee. Cool. So, ready for Thursday's lecture on advanced pack dynamics? We'll be early, Zilax promised, to set up the chairs how you like them. And adjust the temperature, Ginix added. You're always cold. And have backup coffee ready. Arhill finished. Michael smiled, exhausted but genuine. You guys are going to make amazing pack leaders someday. We already are, Zilax said simply. You taught us how. They walked toward the classroom together. One sleep-deprived human, 5 apex predators, moving in unconscious formation that protected their most valuable pack member. Behind them, faculty members took notes, still trying to understand what Michael had always known. Trust isn't complicated. You just have to be willing to fall asleep first.